Hello, everyone. So I'll introduce myself quickly. I'm Madam Azimah, of course. Amna's here and Aisha's here from the My English Matters team. We're going to talk about the active and passive voice. All right, so are you guys ready? You're going to go straight. Ready, okay? So the first thing I want you to understand is a complete sentence needs a subject and a verb. So I've got a picture of an ice cream there because I've got several examples. So let's take a look at this example. Amna ate ice cream. So where's the subject? Amna. Where's the verb? Ate. And then the rest. Okay, ice cream object. Simple. I might want to change it into a passive form, which I'll talk about. My ice cream has been eaten. My ice cream has been eaten. This is also an example of a complete sentence, but this is a passive sentence. So my ice cream has been eaten. So has been eaten is a verb. All of that, verb, verb, verb. My ice cream, subject. Okay, so we're just going through the basics first. And here's another one, another passive sentence. I was born in Kuala Lumpur. That's a true story. Okay, it's also a passive sentence. We'll find out what I mean by passive and active. Okay, so we're going straight to concepts for you to understand, and I've got 7 concepts. Okay, now that you understand, we need subject and verb. Now let's break down some concepts for you to understand before we talk about active versus passive. Okay, first, so these might be very simple, so I'll gloss over concepts to understand. Okay, subject. What's a subject? All right, simple. It could be any noun, it could be a pronoun, it could be a noun phrase. So simple examples: noun or proper noun. Tony Stark. Okay, character. Yeah, Wolverine. Harry Potter. That's a proper noun. I'll put that under noun, right? Pronouns like he, she, it, we, they. That's a pronoun. And then beauty, knowledge, it's also a noun. It's also a noun. All right. So understand this, concepts to understand first. Subjects like this. And then I want you to understand the second concept because we have 7 to go through. What's a noun phrase? So a noun phrase is basically a group of words containing a noun, such as the genius inventor, Tony Stark, the mutant with claws, the boy who lived, Harry Potter, members of the organization, that Thai restaurant. So if you notice, a noun phrase contains a group of words, and inside there's a noun. Clear, everyone? Great. Okay. So that's concept 2. Concept 3, object. What's an object? Actually, the same thing. It's a noun. Could be a noun. It could be a pronoun, like I've taught you before. It could be a noun phrase. However, it receives the verb. Okay, clear? So, for example, here's a sentence. I kicked the ball. The ball is receiving the kicking. So the ball is a noun phrase and it's an object in that it functions as an object. I'll give you some more. They wrote the proposal. The proposal, noun phrase. I wrote an email to him or to her or to you. Him, her, and you. That's an object as well. Those are objects. It's a pronoun. Okay. So objects normally appear at the end of a sentence if it's an active sentence. Clear, everyone? So far, so good? Okay. Okay. Right. So that 3 concepts now, 3 concepts: subject, noun phrase, object. Simple. Okay. Let's go to verbs. What's a verb? This is our 4th concept I need you to understand before we go to the active passive, okay? Verbs. Verbs, the meaning of verb. So listen very carefully because people confuse verbs. They think it's just an action, but it's not. Yes, it can be an action. It can be a state or occurrence. That means what a person think is being. Okay, if it's an action, it's doing. Right? So verbs, if you're confused with verbs, don't worry, I'll give you some examples. Action verbs like eat, run, exercise. Those are very simple ones. If you think of action, movement, right? Movement, physical movement. You can see action verbs. But it can also be, like I said, stative. That means it's just, I can't really see the action. So it could be, oh, I like ice cream. Like, I can't see you liking it. Maybe you're smiling. Or I agree. Even the word agree is a verb, but it's a stative verb. Understand, prefer, love. So these are not really physical things. These are not physical actions. That's why we call it stative. It's the opposite of action. Clear, everybody? So action, physical. Stative is not physical, non-physical, non-action. And then we have other kinds of verbs. So I'm not going to go deep into all these meanings, but I'll just give you examples. We have forms of be, and then do, and then have, and then modal verbs, which I will break down these things later. I'll break the other kinds of verbs, but not right now. But for you just to understand, verbs can be complicated if you don't know what a verb is. Okay, so that's concept 4, right? Verb phrase. So earlier on, I said there's a noun and then there's a noun phrase. So what do you think about a verb phrase? It would be a collection, a group of verbs in there. So we have is eating. So is a verb, eating is a verb too, right? So together it becomes a verb phrase. Were driving. Have taken. I have taken food. I have eaten food. Had thought. Both are verbs, so it's verb phrase under that. Has been eaten. My cake has been eaten. Has been eaten. Okay. So example, you are listening to this lecture right now. Are listening, that by itself is a verb phrase because it's a collection there of verbs. Okay, so far so good. I hope you're clear. The 6th now, moving on to the 6th now. Okay. I want you to get to the next level concepts to understand, which is this subject-verb agreement rule. Now, you've learned this, I believe, in high school, university, maybe even primary school. So every subject must agree with the verb. Remember I said what's a subject? Have I told you what a subject is yet? So subjects are noun, pronoun, noun phrase, remember? So it has to agree with the verb. The verb has to agree with the subject, excuse me. I love ice cream. Remember, love is a verb? I love ice cream. What about they? They love ice cream. Agree, yeah? They love, okay. She. What happens to the word love there? What do you see? Shout it out even though I can't hear you. She loves ice cream. Do you see? What happened to the love there? We put the S. We put the S because we have to agree, subject-verb agreement. She loves ice cream. The document, subject there, that's the whole thing, has arrived. The verb has must agree with the document. It cannot be have. Instead, if you want to put have, you have to put the documents, plural. The documents have arrived. Okay, I hope this is not tricky for you. I hope it's easy. The 6th one is the documents had arrived this morning. There's another one as well. It's either have or had. This depends on the tense. Okay. So this is subject-verb agreement rule. Most of the A1 learners, that means if you think you're in A1 beginner level, you have to know this one for you to get to the next level. Okay, you've got to understand subject-verb agreement rule. Okay, now let's talk about the seventh concept. That is the final concept. The verbs must be conjugated. So I want you to write that word down. Like, what is conjugated? What is that? The verbs must be conjugated. So conjugated means it must be changed. This is the tricky thing about verbs. Must be changed according to number. How many people, how many nouns there are, person, like singular, plural, how many, right? Person, and then tense. Oh my goodness, tense. Okay, so if I use the term conjugated, it just means changed, right? So 7 concepts so far. Hopefully you're okay. And so let's review some of the concepts that we have learned so far. First concept is that all complete sentences need a subject and a verb. We've learned what a subject is. We've learned what's a noun phrase, object, verb phrase, subject-verb agreement rule, and then we've learned verbs must be conjugated. So far, these are the 7 things I need you to understand, hopefully. Did I get that correct? Or 7, I think. Okay, I think so. All right. Now, let's go to, we have a bonus one, a bonus concept. Have you guys heard of this one? Concept 8, the past participle. I know it's a strange name, but it's actually easier than you think. So I want you to write this down, the past participle in your notes. Write that down because I will be talking about the past participle like 300 times in this class. So for every verb, there are what we call different forms of verbs. One verb can be changed into, we call the simple form, because that's the dictionary form, the simple form. In this table here, you'll see the simple form. Sometimes it's called the base form. Sometimes I'll call it the base form. Sometimes I'll call it verb 1. Sometimes I'll call it the bare infinitive. So verb 1 is the dictionary form of that verb. It's the original base form, okay? Verb 2, that means that same verb now will be changed, okay? Verb 2 is a category where it is changed because it is in the simple past form. So it's either the ed form, that means we add from the original base form, we add the ede, or it's just irregular, so you just have to know, you have to memorize, okay? Verb 3. Verb 3 is where I need you to pay attention because this is actually the official name for verb 3 is past participle form, which is used in the perfect tense, which we're not going to be learning perfect tense today, but we're going to be learning the passive. And that's why I need you to pay attention to the past participle is the verb 3 form. And then the ing form, it's very easy. All you have to do is add ing. And the official name, the formal name is present participle. All of these names get learners confused and maybe they hate grammar because of it. Okay, so that's why I'm here to be with you and help you out. All right. So the ing verb is normally used in continuous tense. Okay, now the activity for you and that I want you to do is quickly write the past participle form. Even if it's not correct, it's okay, but try. So let's do the first one. Write, verb 1, original form, base form. Verb 2, wrote, irregular, it's not writ. Verb 3, written, ing form, writing. Okay, so I want you to do 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7. Can you just do that now if you're can write in the chat if you want. All right. Oh, excuse me. Okay, there you go. That's the answer. So for remind, it would be reminded. And then verb 3, reminded too. Same. Sometimes it's the same as verb 2. Sometimes. It's the star, the ones with the, here, the star here, shows that it's irregular. So do, did, done. Okay. Doing. Speak, spoke, spoken. Make, made, made. Same here. Be, oh, be is the most difficult one because you're like, be? Be is the base form in the dictionary, but it has so many different types. Verb 2 would be was and were, depending on plural or singular. And then suddenly verb 3, been, back to being, B-E-N. And then ing, B-I-N-G, being. And then we have am, is, and are, which is another thing altogether. Okay. Explain, explained, explain for number 7. Okay, so I hope you've got that all correct. If you haven't, take note of where you got stuck. That means this is where you need to work on. Okay, so at least you know, take note of it. Okay. Now let's go back to let's go back to the concept of the past participle. So this is where we are going to be focusing a lot on the past participle, but I still want to talk about the concept here. Okay. Now, a few things for you to understand. So the past participle, that term, sometimes teachers call it verb 3 just to make it easier because you're like, okay, verb 1, verb 2, verb 3, or learners would have to sing this back in, primary school. They're like, sing, sang, sung, ring, rang, rung, whatever. It's like verb 3, easy to remember when you sing. But the past participle is the formal term. And then the past participle is used in 3 main ways. Used in 3 main ways. So I'll just tell you that it can also be used as an adjective to describe the noun. So an adjective would describe the noun. So the broken glass, glass is a noun. Broken is like, oh, broke, broken. You see that? Broken, it's past participle, but here it is used as an adjective. The glass is broken. Right? But our concern is number 3, but I'll talk about number 2. Past participle is also used to create a perfect tense. Perfect tense is when you use has, have, or had plus, that's when I want to use the term verb 3, which is a past participle. They have broken the world record. Okay. They've broken the world record. Okay. To create a passive voice is our concern here. It's when you use a be and then a past participle. Okay, so look at this one. The world record has been broken by Usain Bolt. Okay, so past participle, very important because it's used in these 3 ways and you might get confused and all, but our concern right now is number 3. We want to use it to create a passive voice. Okay, and I'll give you the formula for forming this afterwards. Okay, so forming the active and passive voice. So active voice first. What do I mean by that? The focus of that sentence is on the doer, the actor. That's why it's called active, because the actor is doing the action. Okay, so we have, for example, a factory in Taiwan made this shirt. So I've highlighted in yellow there, doer or the actor. A factory in Taiwan, that's the actor, made this shirt. And the whole thing is a noun phrase. You'll see actors are always noun phrase, okay? So, or noun. Dr. Tan conducted a field study on topic X. Okay, this is very academic writing. Dr. Tan is the doer or actor. Conducted is the verb. A field study on topic X, the rest. Spielberg directed Jurassic Park. Okay, Steven Spielberg directed Jurassic Park. So Spielberg is the actor. I'm not talking about he's the director. Yes, he is. But in that sentence, we call, in the grammar terms, we call it actor, we call it doer, we call it agent. Okay, Spielberg directed Jurassic Park. So this is the active formula, the active voice formula. The focus is on the doer. So the doer would be normally at the front there, as you can see. Okay, so that means passive is the opposite. So for a passive voice, it would be, the focus would change. The focus is on the subject instead. So we're going to look at the first sentence and we're going to compare it with the active voice. This shirt was made by a factory, if I want, in Taiwan. So passive voice, I've changed it. I've changed the subject to this shirt instead of a factory in Taiwan. And I've deleted by a factory because in a passive sentence, you do not need, normally you don't need to write by. If it's not important, don't. Okay. A field study was conducted on topic X by Dr. Tan. If I want to, I can. If I don't want to, just delete. A field study, compare it to active. Dr. Tan conducted a field study. But this one, a field study was conducted. And take a look at what's happened to the verb there. Suddenly, you have to add was. You see it? It's different. Original active sentence made, but here was made. For number 2, conducted, it was conducted. What's happening? This is where we talk about we'll talk about the formula, okay? Last one, what do you think about number 3? Can you do number 3? What do you think? Okay. So number 3 would be Jurassic Park was directed by Spielberg. And I want you to try this one as well. Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet. William Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet, the play. Okay, hope you're familiar with Shakespeare. Sure you are. So that's the active. So now I want you to change that into a passive voice. Romeo and Juliet was written by Shakespeare. Why not were written? Because Romeo and Juliet, it's a play. So it's one title. It's a title of a play. Okay, very good. Was written. Remember the formula? Verb 3 or past participle. Okay, good. Before we go deeper into this, because now I'm going to go deeper into the passive voice, but I do want to talk about when should we use the passive voice and why is it important? Is it really important? Now, I know some of you are academics, scientists, engineers, doctors, and all of that. You are writing a lot. Students, I think we have students as well, university students, high school students as well. When you're writing an academic, reports and all, you need to learn how to use the passive voice. Okay, so when should we use the passive voice? Which voice, active or passive? Okay, so let's take a look at what people say about using the active voice. Active voice can be easier to understand. It's more engaging to the brain. It's easier for us, especially if you and I are speaking. I prefer that you use the active voice as a listener. It's easier for me to process because the active voice just makes it easier for the listener to understand, process, right? So it's different from writing. So the recommendation is that the active voice should be used whenever possible and try to put the majority of your sentences in the active voice. Unless you truly can't, there's no other way, then you use the passive voice. So you have a choice. You have a choice. If you're speaking, use as much as you can the active voice. However, the passive voice has its perks. That means advantages as well. So the passive voice is used when the focus is on the subject, not the doer. So that's because the doer is not important, right? It's obvious, or it's unknown, or it's irrelevant. And in writing, it sounds more impersonal. It sounds more professional because you're not using I, he, she, it. And it's useful for, like I've said, academic writing, scientific writing, legal documents. We have lawyers here, business writing, report writing, students, including newspapers if we have journalists here, newspaper writing and all. You don't know who did what, so you just want to talk about the action. And if you're writing about a process that has been done, writing a process, okay? So our focus is on the passive voice, okay? So very quickly, when to use the passive voice, as you can see there, there's some very beautiful cave painting that's going on, right? So when to use the passive voice, we'll use it in the following cases: when the actor, the doer, is unknown. For example, I hope I pronounced this correctly. The cave paintings of Lascaux, I had to check the pronunciation of Lascaux, it's a city in France, were made in the Upper Old Stone Age. The cave paintings of Lascaux were made in the Upper Old Stone Age, and we don't know who made them. So as you can see, I've underlined were made. Were is a be verb, made past participle. Remember past participle? Okay, so we don't know, so I cannot say. I can't say the cave paintings of Lascaux were made by Leonardo da Vinci. I can't, because I don't know. Obviously it's not, right? Those paintings are not, obviously. We can use the passive voice when it's not important. The actor is not important. Not that it's not important. The actor is not important. For example, an experimental solar power plant will be built in the Australian desert. Will be built. That's the passive form here. Be built, will be built. And because we are not interested in who is building it. Okay, so I'm not going to say by. An experimental solar power plant will be built in the Australian desert by people. No need. Okay. Or I like this one as well, a reason for using the passive voice when you want to be vague about who is responsible. So vague ni in Malay, sama-sama, is it correct? Or like you don't really want to be direct for politeness sometimes, okay? You don't want to be direct. So for example, you say, oh, mistakes were made. By who? I don't want to say. I don't want to say, sensitive, okay? Or it has been suggested that, right, when you want to be polite, it has been suggested that, siapa, who suggested? I don't want to say, don't want to say, okay? All right. Of course, you can use a passive voice when you're talking about a general truth. So just a fact, cloth is measured in yards. It's just truth. I don't want to say cloth is measured in yards by people, right? Or number 5, you want to emphasize the person or thing acted on, not doing. For example, it may be your main topic. So if you're writing something, it can be insulin, that's my topic, was first discovered. You see there, was and then discovered. Was first discovered in 1921 by researchers at the University of Toronto. That's the correct pronunciation. Toronto, yeah. It is still the only treatment available for diabetes. Okay, so insulin is my topic. And I've got by researchers there. And then the last reason that I want to use the passive voice and you might want to use the passive voice is if you're writing in a scientific genre. So the passive voice is often preferred in lab reports and scientific research papers. So for example, the sodium hydroxide, that's the subject, was dissolved. The whole thing is passive in water. This solution was then, what's that word? Titrated with hydrochloric acid. So I'm giving you big words. These are scientific terms. I don't use them myself. But we have scientists here, perhaps. And another example, blood samples were obtained. You see there, blood samples, noun, were obtained, passive, with consent from 256 Caucasian male patients. So sounds a bit scientific and all of that. Yes, academic, it's preferred. Okay, so that's why you have to use, not have to, you're recommended to use the passive voice. Okay, now we can go to the formula. Okay, so write this down, everybody. Write the formula down and then we'll go through some examples. So the formula, how do we form a passive sentence? This is the formula. Subject. Remember we talked about subject early on, some of the concepts. After the subject, we put form of the be verb and then a past participle, remember concept 8, past participle, and then the rest of the sentence. And if I want to write by someone, by X, by wherever. So break it down very, as you can see, I've broken it into like a table form so you can see English subject is spoken all over the world. Past participle, spoken. So it's not speak, is spoked, no such thing. Is spoken, past participle, all over the world. And I don't want to write by everybody in the whole world. Lunch will be, that's the be form. The whole thing is a be form. Served, past participle, shortly. And you'll say this very formally, like if you are announcing something, you're an MC, you're like, okay, everybody, lunch will be served shortly. And you don't have to say by people from the canteen. Yeah, you don't have to say that, okay? Number 3, several studies on topic X, that's the whole thing, subject, noun phrase, were, be verb, conducted in the past, very academic. And number 4, all exams are postponed until further notice. The rest of the sentence, are postponed. You see there? Right. So I've broken it down like that so you can see what it looks like, the formula. And so I want you to screenshot, if you have space on your camera, okay? You're going to screenshot this. This is the formula and this is what we're going to go back to again and again and again. So even though I said it earlier on, if you've written it down, but here the formula is subject plus form of the be verb plus past participle, we've talked about past participle, plus the rest of the sentence or by whoever. Okay, but what's the be verb? So many. There are so many be verbs here, but I'll just read out loud. The be verbs, we have am, we have is, we have are, we have was, we have were. Strangely enough, these are all be verbs, even though it's like, mine a be, can't see the be, but it's there. Okay, am, is, are, was, and were are be verbs. So, is, has been, have been, had been. That's a be verb too. Those are be verbs too. Has been, have been, had been. At least there's a be there, you can see. Yeah, that's a be verb too. Am being, is being, are being. Be verb. Was being, were being. Be verbs. Will have been. That's also a be verb. Will be. That's a be verb. Can be. That's a be verb. So let's do it again. The formula is to form a passive voice. subject first. Subject needs to go first, and subject is a noun. It can be a noun phrase, remember, or pronoun. We talked about the concepts. After that, we have any forms of the be verb, any of them. Okay, depending on the tense. Any of them, right? I said so many. And then past participle. And then the rest of the sentence. Okay, so that is our formula. Okay, how can I tell, how to tell if a sentence is in the active or passive? I can't tell, I'm still confused. All right, so what you do is you identify whether the sentence subject is the actor or the object. Is the subject the actor or the object of the action? So for example, she made many mistakes. She made, she's doing. So obviously, she is the actor. This is the active sentence. Okay, you don't have to write this down. I'm just going through very quickly. Here's another example. Many mistakes were made by her. So I've put her at the end. Many mistakes were made. Do you see that? Were. That's a be verb. Made, past participle. All I have to do is find that. And I know it is a passive voice. Okay. So the subject is many mistakes. Many mistakes is the result of an action taken by an actor, her. Okay. Right. So I have a fun tip for you. All right. Look at that picture. I want you to remember this picture forever, but don't have nightmares. This is a fun, cute picture, hopefully. But this is a fun tip for you if you want to know if it's passive or active. Try adding by zombies at the end of the sentence. If it is grammatically correct, it is passive. Try adding by zombies. It's just a fun thing that I think English teachers created just to make it fun. Like, oh, if it's by zombies at the end, I can have by zombies at the end. It is a passive sentence.